Okay, let's move on to the second album. I'm sure John can give his takes, bite-sized takes or something whenever he comes back. But we're moving on to Aphex Twin and the Richard D. James album. In the opening montage, you heard Finger Bib, and now you're going to hear Logan Rock Witch. I had to say that slowly because I fear it's doesn't roll off the tongue. But what are the stats on this one?
Yes, some really interesting song titles in this record, I would say. The Richard D. James album by Aphex Twin comes in at number 140 in the 1990s on Best Ever Albums, number 13 in 1996, and number 788 of all time. It is Aphex Twin's second highest rated album on Best Ever Albums, behind 1992's Selected Ambient Works, 85 to 92, which we did cover earlier in this season. And the Richard D. James album did not make Rolling Stone's list. Aphex Twin ranked number 137 of overall artist rankings on Best Ever Albums.
Very influential. That was episode 15 when we of the season when we talked about Selected Ambient Works. Richard D. James' album came out November 4th, 1996. Aphex Twin is not twins, it's one man, Richard D. James, Richard David James, born in Limerick, Ireland in 1971. This is the fourth studio album of 6 total. He also has 16 EPs. He's classified as electronica, techno, ambient, experimental. And this album got labeled IDM, one of our favorite monikers, intelligence dance music.
That's a musical genre, IDM?
Yeah, we've talked about that before. Yeah, with some of the other yeah. Anyway.
People seem to be reaching with some of these titles, don't they? I mean,
Pitchfork claimed to labeled that IDM, so maybe they came up with the term. I don't know.
That tracks, yeah.
Yeah. Aphex Twin's influenced by Brian Eno, Kraftwerk, Throbbing Gristle, Tangerine Dream, followed by artists like Radiohead, Deadmau5, Skrillex, Major Lazer, Calvin Harris. I think on the last episode we did them, Tom York is really likes Aphex Twin, was very influenced by him. I think I said that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yep. This album was composed by Richard D. James on his Macintosh entirely. This is a faster style of drum programming that he used, inspired by his fellow musician Luke Vibert, known as Plug. And this style of drum programming, this very fast, as you will immediately hear if you listen to this album, is known as drill and bass, kind of a short-lived sub-genre of electronica. The computer-based approach would become his dominant style through the end of the decade. On To Cure a Weakling Child, that track, it's his voice that's been modulated to sound like a child's. And this album was well liked by critics, both at the time and then retrospectively. In 2015 review by Exclaim magazine, they said, quote, "Not necessarily a release that you immediately fall in love with," quote, "but it was endlessly rewarding." And I bring that review up because that's a little bit how I feel about this in the times I've listened to it. But what did you think about Aphex Twin? I don't really remember Selected Ambient Works too much. I think I kind of remembered liking it, but yeah. This is different. I do recall that.
Yeah, I definitely think that the drums stand out as kind of being the main sonic kind of piece to this. They are it's like machine guns, right? Like how fast some of them go. And at times it can be a little bit, it can kind of catch you a little off guard, or it can be a little bit, they can come in hot with them a little bit, which can be a little disconcerting, or just be like, whoa, I wasn't, little off, right? So, this is, I guess I would first say I don't know if this is an album that I want to listen to a whole lot, like again and again and again.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because there are several elements of this that I can definitely yes, this is very much influential on Tom York and Radiohead, which is one of my favorite bands, right?
Yeah.
And they very much go in this direction when they, at post, but particularly like Kid A and Amnesiac and the records about post 2000. and so I think that it's certainly important. It's almost a little bit too saturated, right? It's too, like, I like maybe this in a lighter version where there's other elements happening, where there are other instrumentation. But when you're kind of getting, you're mainlining kind of like the electronic stuff coming directly from the computer, I think overall it's a little bit less appealing to me as a listener. I found it interesting that maybe my favorite song on this was Finger Bib, which you put in the opener, or one of the segments,
montage,
the montage, and that reminded me of Kraftwerk, right? It was also had less of that drum beat, maybe little of that. You know, it kind of is maybe the one song that really kind of stayed away from that, which I found refreshing a little bit at the fourth track. You know, you get 3 tracks at a lot of that drumming, and so it kind of, you know, dialed that back a good amount, and then they put it more of a ambient, you know, kind of synth song in the line of like a Kraftwerk song, you know. So that one stood out to me. I kind of liked that style,
right,
more than, you know, some of the other stuff here. But it's certainly an interesting record, you know, and it's probably lies in that category of like, I'm glad Aphex Twin is out there and put out these records, right, and changed music and gave artists license to kind of go in different directions and to be more creative and stuff like that, because it's this sound that is that's put in other bands, you know, kind of draw from this, and they kind of make it their own, that I connect with more than just this, and this is kind of like a pure form of that, right? I think that the other thing too, I probably screwed up this week. This definitely seems more like a night album as well. And I didn't listen to it. Like, I probably didn't give this a fair shake of the time and place to listen to it, because I think it's very much what that is. I think both times I listened to it, mainly it was like on my way to work.
Oh,
right. You know what I mean? I kind of, and I'm just like, so it's not, and that's usually when I listen to these records. And I probably should have, you know, been a little smarter and listened to this on headphones, like at some night. And it would have been very easy to do that, I think, because it's only 32 minutes long, 33 minutes long. So I kind of screwed up there. So I'm probably not giving it a fair share. I think in that environment, I would probably connect with it more. But I got to comment on my experience with it, and that was kind of it. So yeah, I guess it's as a listening experience, it's kind of like a thumbs in the middle, because I don't know if it moved the needle a whole lot for me, but in terms of my appreciation for it and like the importance of it, it's definitely a thumbs up, because it for all the reasons that I mentioned and how it was able to influence artists that I really do like, particularly one of my favorites in Radiohead. So yeah, so a little bit mixed, you know, it's kind of having multiple thoughts here. But what do you think?
Yeah, I feel similar to you. This falls into the spectrum, or on the spectrum of electronica, where it's getting to be too mathematical and unnatural sounding.
I like that word. Yeah.
To be enjoyable, and it's, you know, it's telling that just like you, the songs I liked the most were when he dialed back to kind of drumming. And let's be clear, it's like not drumming that you would hear on a drum, right? It's like, it's so like kind of alien and sped up and rapid fire, like you said, machine gun, that like it doesn't sound, it's just like so fast, and it doesn't really sound like drums. Like, in a sense, yes, I guess it's like if you pushed a key as fast as you possibly could, that's what the drum sound would be like.
I don't even, you have to have multiple fingers going on that. Right. It's almost like seizure inducing kind of stuff, you know, like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the album comes out of the gate kind of with that aggressive approach, and it kind of turns me off. But when it like drops that back or gets into a different groove, like on Finger Bib, and some of these songs start out with the aggressive drill and bass, but then change or kind of go in movements, and those parts I like more as well. It is kind of the more aggressive sounding feel to the songs that turn me off. Karn Marth is another song that had the fast drumming on it. It's just a lot to handle. It also had a dial-up modem sound at the end that I thought was funny. They incorporated that with the drumming, and so this is like, it's IDM, but it's also like pretty experimental in terms of its sound. So, To Cure a Weakling Child had a strange like trance pull to it. I found myself like getting into feeling like attracted to that song the more I listened to it, even though it's kind of repetitive and weird. And I think Girl Boy Song has like an organ in it that's pretty interesting. And then Logan Rock, which is just kind of weird because it's like didgeridoo and slide whistle, and you wouldn't think like putting those together would work, but it does work on that song. So I feel like he is talented, like he can do stuff, and he has a sense for like music on some sort of base level, but he's also just like pushing the envelope electronically and like trying a way to make new sounds and new instruments using a computer. And that's at this point in time in 96, going back to Kraftwerk, right? And the guys who were using like Moog synthesizers or started those whole computer rooms of like synths and stuff, like computers have been around in music for a long time at this point, but I guess using portable computers, home computers to make music is probably newer. It, is probably just a 90s thing, or starting to be, and now it's like all mainstream, right? Like everything's is programmed and used. Pro
Tools,
is made through the computer.
And auto tune and right.
Yep. So I'm mixed on this too. It really, and at 35 minutes, it does go by pretty fast. So like you can, if you don't like a song, it pretty much transitions quickly to the next song, and you might feel entirely different about that one. So I'm mixed on this.
Yeah, it's one of those things too where it's kind of, and I think John's mentioned this before about albums where, or maybe you have too, it's kind of all like, it's hard to kind of separate the songs in some ways. It's kind of like one piece, it's like transitioning from one thing to another. And I'm trying not to, undersell it, because there's moments where I'm like, oh, that's nice, I like that part that he did with that or that, but it was just hard for me to kind of really grasp onto this like I have to other albums, including electronic albums. I definitely, it's hard for me to remember exactly what I probably should have gone back to listen to Selected Ambient Works, that other album that we covered, because I think that I remember connecting with that a little bit more. I just remember having a little bit more of a positive reaction to that. So yeah, he's clearly talented, and he's using different. It's not really organic at all. It's like very, very technical or very computer based. It's like, it sounds like he's making stuff on his Mac, which is how do you even start that, right? How do you like I have a Mac, right? Yeah. But I wouldn't even know how to make. I could barely make like regular noises on a Mac, let alone like all this stuff that he's doing. So, yeah.
And this, and I agree too. I did listen to this at night, and it does work better at night.
Yeah, I almost feel like I should just go back. It's only 32:51 is the runtime. I should almost go back and try to do that. And I don't know,
or even just listen to some of the songs that you liked at night, and I think they're probably even better.
I think that I would definitely have a higher opinion of it. So, but yeah, I like I said, glad he's out there, man, because I really like some of the stuff that people did with this sound. I think he certainly was onto something, and certainly influential.
Mm-hmm.